Welcome, engineers. My name is Travis IQ, and let's talk the Colonial Pipeline ransomware, the size and scope of the attack, the ransomware and variants that it was hit by, as well as some mitigation strategies. So a company that runs a pipeline that feeds fuel from Texas and refineries in Houston all the way up the East Coast. Around 45% of all the fuel consumed on the East Coast, according to the company, Colonial, has been hit by a ransomware attack and is in the midst of recovering from this ransomware attack and or paying the ransomware. So what do we know? We know that the ransomware group that attacked the Colonial Pipeline is known as DarkSide. They are a Ransomware As A Service group, RaaS. They contract out some other functionality and this and that, but they are primarily a Ransomware As A Service a Ransomware As A Service group based out of a Russian area, it is theorized. We know that the industrial systems and the pipeline associated with Colonial have been shut down, and they are working to get them back up. And Colonial has said that they will make substantial restored services, or they will substantially restore the services in the coming week or so. Again, substantially restoring services really doesn't mean much to me. What is substantial to you or substantial to them is really unknown. But what it does mean is that they are unsure as to what a number of services are going to look like in the following week. What that also means is, as reported by the company, and I think in conjunction with the DOT or the government, have said that if the services are restored inside the next week, then there shouldn't be a substantive effect on oil prices in the region or nationally. But the idea is there really isn't any concrete evidence to say that it will or won't be back up. So the likelihood of it affecting both the availability and the pricing of fuel in the region is actually pretty high. The group claiming responsibility for the attack is among a larger group of professionalized ransomware attacks that have occurred over the last 3 years and have really cost the U.S. and North American or Western companies in the order of tens of billions of dollars over the last 3 years or so. And what I mean by professionalized ransomware attacks is that they are targeted to large organizations. They are complex. They have taken place over the course of months or even longer periods of time, and they have netted, obviously, in the realm of billions of dollars. So Colonial has yet to report whether they actually paid the ransomware or not, but there has been no release of information from the ransomware group, and there has been no release of information from Colonial, which is usually an indicator, and the AP reported this as well, that it's usually an indicator of negotiations taking place in terms of paying or attempting to pay ransomware. So take that for what you want. In response to the pipeline infrastructure issues, the U.S. Department of Transportation has relaxed the guidelines that are associated with over-the-road transport of fuels and other natural gas and things like this. And so there has been a clear response from the U.S. government understanding the severity of this issue. One of the biggest issues associated with it is that it's an industrial control system, ICS, or OT issue, operational technology. So it's actually affecting how the physical world works, how fuel is getting from one place to another in the country. And this has been kind of a larger theme amongst the security professionals and the security world over the last 1 to 5 years, is trying to educate groups such as energy, water, transport, fuel that are considered operational technologies. And every time one of these large issues hits associated with ransomware, there was a pipeline issue at the beginning of 2021. There have been some other industrial issues over the last 3 years or so. They've been infrequent, but increasing in frequency. The security community comes out and says, hey, look at these operational technologies. They are going to be a large focus of ransomware, and ransomware is not going away. And the variations of ransomware are increasing, right? There are currently really 3 variations of ransomware that are being really effectively implemented. One is file level encryption, which is probably the most common, the one that came out earliest. The next is full disk encryption or hard drive encryptions. And the third then is not ransoming your encrypted files back to you, but ransoming your actual stolen files. And so the third variation, and a variation which this ransomware group DarkSide has been implementing, is both file encryption and ransom of data theft. And so saying, hey, we have your data and we will publish it publicly if you do not pay this ransomware, along with the fact that you will not get your encrypted systems back, specifically in an operational technology environment. This is really scary, right? These types of ransomwares are becoming increasingly more common throughout all of the industrial environments, municipalities, governments, and corporate environments, with Tulsa, Oklahoma being another more recent example in that it is one of the 32 state and local governments in the U.S. that have come under attack. But this was reported by Emisoft. And Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said recently that $350 million in victim funds were paid in 2020 alone. And again, this is actually just reported funds or estimated funds by the Department of Homeland Security, right? And so there is a large percentage, most security organizations estimate over 50% that go unreported and are either paid or eaten as a cost by the businesses. So, take this as a grain of salt in terms of numbers, and I would say that it's a vast underestimation. Dave Kennedy, who's the principal security analyst at Trusted Sec, he's at Hacking Dave on Twitter. He's a phenomenal follow on Twitter. I'm going to put his Twitter follow in the link below. He also came out and said basically that ransomware is absolutely out of control. It's the biggest threat facing our nation over the next 1 to 5 years. He's been all over CNBC and different news organizations talking specifically about this industrial control issue as well as ransomware in general, and I think that he's absolutely spot on with this. The last part is, let's talk a little bit more technically about, what is DarkSide. When I said it was ransomware as a service, right? What does it actually do from a technical perspective, right? We're a technical channel. So it's a ransomware variant built by the DarkSide organization. So you might say, is it ReEvil or is it WannaCry or something else? It's not. It's their specific variant that's built for their ransomware as a service. It uses a combination of PowerShell, WMI, obfuscated executables, shares in SMB, as well as scheduled tasks to encrypt files. These are used to delete backups and remediation of the systems as well. So to delete things like shadow files that are used to do Windows backups. So this is used in that classic two-pronged mechanism that I was talking about to both prevent the system from effectively backing up and ensuring that the files are encrypted, as well as the time spent in the system is used to exfiltrate files. So they are also threatening to dox the customer's public information were they not to pay the ransomware. So some additional side notes which are just kind of interesting. The software checks the infected host system language using get system default UI language and get user default language to determine whether it's using a language from the Eastern Bloc or the former Soviet Eastern Blocs. And if it is, then the ransomware does not, or the users who are deploying the ransomware do not target those systems, which is another indicator that it's a Russian-based attacking group. And finally, most of this information can actually be found at a really great write-up done by CyberReason, and I'm going to link the CyberReason write-up below as well if you wanted to go through and look at the screenshots and look at some of the WMI information or some of the executables that get run and how it gets obfuscated. It's actually really cool. That being said, as is always the case, engineer, break stuff, have fun, and check out some of the other cybersecurity news that we have up on the channel. Let's go!